Welcome to the post-game show for Battle Reports 3 through 5. I'll try to keep this short and not ramble on too much. First things first, I want to congratulate the Ultramarines on winning this series 2-1, although only barely losing the first game. So a couple things I want to talk about is I want to go over my thoughts on how the battles went and the MVPs and the least valuable models in each army. So starting with the victors, with the Ultramarines, I have to say that in the first couple of battle reports, this repulsor did not do nearly as much as I thought it was going to for how expensive it is and how many weapons it has, although it did finally start doing stuff in Battle Report 5, the third battle report of the matchup. Things that did well for them, the Land Raider obviously did quite a bit. The Tactical Marines did what they were supposed to do, holding objectives and shooting at stuff across the map. And the Hellblasters, when they were able to stay alive and get shots off, did pretty well with their shooting. Being able to take advantage of the Chapter Masters re-rolling to hit and the Lieutenants re-rolling ones to wound really helped out their supercharged shots take out heavy targets, like the Bloat Drone. Speaking of which, the Bloat Drone definitely has to be the least valuable player on the Death Guard side, since it got killed off at the beginning of each game pretty much and literally did nothing. It's a waste of points. The other least valuable player on the Death Guard side has to be the Icons, because there was not a single time that caused an additional model to run away in the morale phase. So that was also a waste of points. And actually, because of that, between the two Icons and the Bloat Drone, altogether was over 150 points. Those three things not doing anything essentially caused this 2,000 point Death Guard army to really only be an 1850 point army. Now granted, had the Bloat Drone not been around to take the fire at the beginning of each game and be killed off, possibly that firepower would have gone onto something like a Land Raider or the Demon Prince or a Poxwalker squad. And so hindsight's 2020, of course, but it's hard to tell, had this Bloat Drone not been here, what else would have been shot up and killed. Although at 150 something points, the Death Guard potentially could have brought something much better. So all very difficult to tell. So what would the Death Guard have brought instead of the Bloat Drone? The Icons preferably would have brought a Plague Burst Crawler, but had just not enough points, even with taking out both the Icons and the Bloat Drone in order to take that. And there wasn't really anything else upgrade-wise that I would want to remove. I mean, obviously the Plasma Guns and the Power Fists on the Plague Champions could have been taken out to make way for something else, but really didn't want to take those out of the list. So was sort of stuck with, well, okay, what can we fit in for just over 150 points? And we went with that. On the Ultramarine side, things that I would change about the army, would probably want to take Assault Terminators with Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields, since the Storm Bolters, they did a little bit, but not very much, and so they would have been better off having a 3-up invulnerable save. The Hellblasters might have been able to get away with just bringing a group of 5, which would have saved some points and some power, although the power didn't come into effect really, but maybe would have just taken a group of 5 Hellblasters with the Lieutenant and the Chapter Master, and then used those points to give Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields to the Terminators. The Knight Errant, I'm a little conflicted about, because part of its effectiveness depended on whether or not it survived, because it only survived one of the 3 battles. Now, I believe in Battle Report 3, it was killed off almost right away, so it's sort of hard to say how effective that is. I don't think the thermal cannon was as effective as I anticipated it would be, for being strength 9, -4 AP, and D6 damage, roll 2 dice, take the highest. I would also take a Reaper Chainsword instead of the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, as the -1 to hit rolls really caused problems in a couple of the games with trying to determine whether or not to use the Thunderstrike Gauntlet or the Titanic Feet, and especially if he was in a damaged state, then I didn't want the extra -1 to hit, and so I wouldn't say it was as useless as the Repulsor, but it definitely wasn't as useful as the Land Raider or the Hellblasters. And I know I'm going back and forth a lot, but back over to the Death Guard. Land Raiders did well. The Demon Prince did very well in Battle Reports 3 and 4, the first two of the matchup. Died kind of quickly in Battle Report 5, so we couldn't see his effectiveness then, and that might have changed the course of the battle, but he did very well in Battle Report 3 and did very well in Battle Report 4, staying alive way longer than he probably should have a couple of times. And that tainted regeneration, there were multiple times in Battle Reports 3 and 4 where he went down to 1 wound and then came back, so, which is just crazy. Plague Surgeons did what they were supposed to do, giving +1, or giving rerolls of 1s for Disgustingly Resilient, although I think I forgot that a couple of times. I know I forgot some armor saves and some invuln saves a couple of times. And I know, especially in Battle Report 5, that for one of the Lords of Contagion, I forgot his ability to, at the beginning of his fight phase, if he's locked in combat on a 4-up, he causes a mortal wound to the enemy unit, and I know I forgot that at least once. These guys surprisingly have a lot of special rules for their points value. Although surprisingly, from all of the special rules they have, they don't have reroll failed to hit rolls in close combat, which you would think a Lord would have, but apparently not. And with the Plague Marines, they did okay, especially considering their points values, and the plasma guns did some work throughout the battles. So I don't necessarily regret taking them this way. If I could go back and change things, I would maybe have them all kitted out for close combat instead of ranged. Bring things like bubotic axes on the normal Plague Marines instead of plasma guns. Bring flails of corruption. Definitely don't take the icons ever again, because it's sort of tough strategically trying to decide when to disembark them from their Land Raiders, because we want them to stay nice and safe, and also then it makes it much easier to move things around if you're not moving tons of extra models. Like the Poxwalkers always took a couple minutes to move around, which I always had to cut out of the videos to maneuver them into position, just because there's so many guys to move, and making sure that they're lined up correctly and in the exact range of where they're supposed to be, and making sure that they don't fall over, which they did all the time. So maybe close combat models, just because then move the Land Raider up 1 turn right up next to the enemy, next turn disembark and charge in, would sort of solve the issue of, well, do I disembark within 18 inches of the enemy? Do I disembark within 12 inches and then try to charge, even though they're not kitted out for close combat? I'm sure some of those decisions were made incorrectly during the battles. I know strategically I messed up the movement of this Land Raider in Battle Report 3. I should have moved it up in the Ultramarines turn 1, which would have given the Terminators a much better disembark and charge. And I know that for like 2 or 3 turns before disembarking the Terminators, I just left the Land Raider where it was, and that was definitely a mistake, because these guys are best in close combat with their power fists and their power sword, and I did not fully utilize them appropriately in that battle report. And I think that's mainly why they ended up losing that battle report with the kill points, was because of the fact that these guys were not, this group right here was not utilized correctly, because it was so close. Both sides killed off 8 enemy units in full. Both sides achieved Slay the Warlord, but the Death Guard achieved First Blood, and only because they managed to steal the initiative. Because if they hadn't stolen the initiative, they wouldn't have killed one of the tactical squads right away and achieved First Blood, because that was the only thing they fully killed off turn 1. And then of course the Ultramarines respond by disembarking the Hellblasters and blowing the Fetid Bloat Drone out of the water. And so I think the Ultramarines could have definitely gotten First Blood that game had they gotten the first turn. And since that's all it came down to was, well, who got first turn, it makes me think, with how Battle Reports 4 and 5 went, the second and third battle report of this matchup, that the Ultramarines probably should have won that game, even with losing First Blood, had I just moved this Land Raider up the board sufficiently when they had the chance to do so. Because the fact that it was so close makes me wonder, especially since in Battle Report 4, the second battle report of this matchup, the fact that the Death Guard were almost tabled makes me think that the Ultramarines should have won a kill point matchup. They managed to almost completely wipe the Death Guard from the board. They wiped 12 full units, and the only thing left, I believe, was this Plague Surgeon with all of his wounds, but they wiped 12 units fully off the board, and so it makes me think that they probably should have won a kill point matchup, and the fact that they didn't makes me think they really must have messed up a couple of things with the movement and targeting. Although the Ultramarines seem to have some really bad dice rolls throughout all of these battle reports, because I mean, this repulsor just cannot do anything, especially in that first battle report of the matchup. This repulsor shot so much at the Demon Prince, at Poxwalkers, at Plague Marines, at Land Raiders, and just could not do anything. And so maybe the Ultramarines just had some really bad luck on their side right away, which also caused their downfall. So the end result was 2 games for the Ultramarines, 1 game for the Death Guard. Probably should have been 3 games for the Ultramarines, 0 games for the Death Guard. But some things that I learned from this was don't take just one Fetid Bloat drone. Bring at least 2 or 3, so that way if one goes down, the others can still move up the board and get into combat. 'Cause the fact that he didn't even get into combat once in all 3 battle reports really was a waste of his potential, because all he's armed with is his Flesh Mower and his Plague Probe. And so if he doesn't get into close combat, he is essentially just a pile of wounds, but not actually contributing anything to the army. Also, unless I'm going up against something where I know that they have low leadership, don't bother taking icons, because against Space Marines with And They Shall Know No Fear, apparently it doesn't help at all. Poxwalkers did really well. They were very difficult to take down in most instances, and they even managed to claw some wounds from the Night Titan. The Demon Prince worked really well, especially with the Suppurating Plate and Tainted Regeneration. So yeah, that's about all I have for this post-game show. Not really much to say other than random ramblings. The Ultramarines overall won 2 games to 1 against the Death Guard. They won the 2 tactical objective-based games pretty handily, and they barely lost the kill point game, which, like I said, they probably should have won also to have a clean sweep of the Death Guard. This will probably be the last time for a little while anyways the Ultramarines bring a Night Titan. It would be interesting to see the Ultramarines with just Ultramarines models. I'm sure you all would think the same thing. It'd be fun to see the Ultramarines just with Ultramarines models, because technically this is an AdMech model, painted up to be an Ultramarine. And I apologize for the seeming a little too samey with having it always be Ultramarines versus Death Guard, but I wanted to do a group of 3 battle reports so that we could sort of see overall what the record would be, and to see if some units can improve or if they just happen to get really lucky. I mean, you know, like the Repulsor, if we just went off of Battle Report 3, this Repulsor would seem like a complete waste of points, whereas it's kind of redeemed itself in Battle Report 5. Also, the fact that if we had just gone off of the first battle report in the group, Battle Report 3, the Death Guard would have won. It would have been like, oh, would the Ultramarines really have had a chance? But then obviously with the other 2 battle reports in the series, they won very handily, and so turned the tide in terms of the record. And also, I think Battle Report 3, this Knight Errant died like in turn 2. So we wouldn't really have been able to see the potential that the Knight Errant could bring to the battle. So it definitely changed my perspective on these 2 armies after playing all 3 battle reports and not just playing the one. Because otherwise, after just playing the one, it looked like the Death Guard were vastly superior, but after taking a look at the whole, the Ultramarines were actually the superior army and just had really bad luck in that first battle report. So thank you for listening to me ramble for a few minutes. If you have any suggestions about what you would have changed to the armies, leave them in the comments down below, so I'm always looking for new ideas as to what to bring. The Death Guard and the Ultramarines will still appear in the next matchup because they have the most models ready to go, but we'll be bringing in some new armies as well, so that should hopefully change up some things and change up the matchup a little bit. So thank you for listening to me ramble. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next group.